When I found my mother lying on the bathroom floor 3 weeks after the surgery, her hand pressed against her side where they'd taken her kidney, I realized that some sacrifices are too great to ever be repaid. And some people are too selfish to even try. My name is Angela, and this is the story of how my mother gave a piece of herself to save our family home, and how my stepmother stole that gift for herself. Let me take you back to before everything fell apart. We lived in a modest two-story house on Maple Grove Avenue, the kind of house that holds more memories than value. My father bought it when I was 3 years old, back when the neighborhood was full of young families and the maple trees were just saplings. My mother planted rose bushes along the front walkway. Every spring, they bloomed deep crimson, and she'd cut them fresh for the kitchen table. My father passed away when I was 19. A heart attack, sudden and cruel, took him from us on a Tuesday morning while he was getting ready for work. I found him. That's a detail I don't share often, but it's important for you to understand how close we were. My mother and I, after that day, we became each other's anchor. For 5 years, it was just the two of us in that house. We learned to fix the leaky faucet together. We repainted the living room a soft butter yellow because Mom said it reminded her of sunshine. She worked double shifts as a nurse at the county hospital, and I worked part-time while finishing my degree in education. We were tired, but we were okay. We had each other, and we had the house Dad left us. Then Richard came into the picture. I met him first, actually, at a community fundraiser for the hospital. He was charming, well-dressed, with silver hair and an easy laugh that made people feel comfortable. He asked about my mother within the first 10 minutes of our conversation. "Is she here tonight?" he'd said, and something in his voice made me believe he genuinely wanted to know her, not just meet her. Mom was hesitant at first. She'd worn her wedding ring for 6 years after Dad died, but Richard was patient. He brought her flowers, daisies, not roses, because he'd listened when I mentioned she loved their simplicity. He took her to quiet dinners, never flashy places. He fixed the porch railing without being asked. After a year, they got married. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. I stood beside her in a lavender dress, and when she said her vows, her voice was steady. She was ready to move forward. I was happy for her. Richard had a daughter from his first marriage, Vanessa. She was 32, 3 years older than me, and she lived 2 states away with her own family. She came to the wedding, smiled politely, hugged her father, and left the next morning. I didn't think much of it then. But Vanessa moved back 8 months after the wedding. Her marriage had fallen apart, she said. She needed time to recalibrate, find herself again. Richard was overjoyed. He set up the guest room for her, bought new furniture, repainted the walls the exact shade of blue she requested. My mother, ever the caregiver, welcomed her warmly. "Family takes care of family," she told me one evening while folding laundry. "She's hurting, Angela. We have space. It's the right thing to do." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to see Vanessa the way my mother did, as someone fragile, rebuilding, but something about the way she moved through our house felt wrong. She never offered to help with groceries, never cleaned up after herself. She'd leave her coffee cups on the counter, her shoes in the hallway, her wet towels on the bathroom floor. When I mentioned it once, gently, she looked at me like I'd insulted her. "I'm going through something, Angela," she said, voice dripping with condescension. "Maybe try having a little empathy." My mother overheard and later told me to give Vanessa grace. "Grief looks different for everyone," she said. So I tried. I swallowed my frustration. I picked up the coffee cups. I kept the peace. But then the letters started coming. It was a Saturday morning in late September when I saw my mother sitting at the kitchen table, staring at an envelope like it had burned her. The return address was from the county tax office. Her hands were shaking. "Mom," I sat down across from her, my stomach tightening. "What is it?" She looked up at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen in her face since the day Dad died: fear. "We're behind on the property taxes," she said quietly. 3 years behind." My heart dropped. "What? How is that even possible?" She explained, her voice breaking in places, that after Dad died, she'd struggled to keep up with all the paperwork. Richard had offered to take over the finances when they got married. He assured her he'd handle everything: the mortgage, the taxes, the utilities. She'd trusted him. She'd been so grateful to not carry that burden alone anymore. But Richard had missed payments, not just one or 2 years of payments. He'd been covering the mortgage barely, but the property taxes had gone ignored. We owed over $43,000. If we didn't pay within 90 days, the county would foreclose on the house. I felt the air leave my lungs. "Where's Richard?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "At work," she whispered. "He doesn't know I opened the letter. I don't know how to tell him. He'll be devastated." But I didn't care about Richard's feelings in that moment. I cared about my mother's face, pale and stricken. I cared about the house my father had built a life in. I cared that we were about to lose everything because of someone else's negligence. And I had no idea, yet just how much deeper the betrayal would go. That evening, we sat Richard down in the living room. The autumn light was fading through the windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. My mother had barely touched her dinner. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept folding and unfolding her hands in her lap. Richard listened as she explained, his face draining of color with each sentence. When she finished, he put his head in his hands. "I thought I had more time," he said, his voice muffled. "I thought I could catch up before anyone noticed. Business has been slow, and with Vanessa's expenses." Vanessa's expenses? The words came out before I could stop them. He looked up at me, defensive. "She's my daughter, Angela. She needed help getting back on her feet. The therapy, the lawyer fees for her divorce." "We're about to lose our home," I said, keeping my voice level even though my pulse was racing. "Mom's home, the house my father left her." "I know that," he snapped, then caught himself. He softened his tone, reaching for my mother's hand. "Grace, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I'll fix it. I promise. I'll figure something out." But the 90 days came and went, and Richard figured out nothing. He took extra shifts at his sales job. My mother picked up every overtime hour the hospital offered. I drained my small savings account, money I'd been setting aside for a down payment on my own place someday. We scraped together $12,000. It wasn't even a third of what we owed. I applied for loans, denied. My mother's credit was stretched too thin from years of making ends meet alone, and Richard's credit, we discovered, was abysmal. He had debts I hadn't known about: credit cards, a car loan he defaulted on before we met him. We had 60 days left when my mother came to me with the idea. She found me in the backyard, where I'd gone to escape the suffocating tension inside the house. I was sitting on the porch steps, watching the rose bushes sway in the October wind. She sat down beside me, wrapped in Dad's old cardigan that she still wore on cold nights. "I've been thinking," she said quietly. I glanced at her. There was something in her voice, a forced calmness that made my chest tighten. "There's a program," she continued, "a medical program that compensates living kidney donors. It's legal, regulated. The hospital has information about it. I looked into it today during my break." It took a moment for her words to register. When they did, I turned to her sharply. "No, absolutely not." "Angela, Mom, you can't be serious. You want to sell a kidney." "I want to save our home," she said, and her voice cracked on the last word. "This house is all I have left of your father. It's where I brought you home from the hospital. It's where we celebrated every birthday, every Christmas. I can't—" She pressed her fingers to her eyes. "I can't lose this too." I felt tears burning in my own eyes. There has to be another way. "There isn't." She lowered her hands and looked at me with a determination I recognized, the same look she'd had when she decided to go back to work 3 days after Dad's funeral because we needed the income. "I'm healthy. I'm a perfect candidate. The compensation is $60,000. It's enough to cover the debt and give us a cushion. It's major surgery. What if something goes wrong? Then at least I tried to save what your father built for us." I wanted to argue more. I wanted to shake her and tell her she was worth more than this house, more than any building. But I also understood. I understood because I felt it too, that desperate need to hold on to the last pieces of the life we'd had before everything changed. So I stopped arguing, and I held her hand while she made the phone calls. The process moved faster than I expected. My mother underwent medical evaluations, psychological screenings, blood work. She was approved within 3 weeks. The surgery was scheduled for early November, just 2 weeks before the final foreclosure deadline. I tried to be supportive. I drove her to appointments. I researched recovery times and post-operative care. I made lists of groceries to buy, medications to pick up, things we'd need to have read. "Why at home?" But the whole time something felt wrong. Not just the surgery itself, though that terrified me, but the atmosphere in the house. Vanessa had been unusually quiet about the whole thing. When Richard told her what Mom was planning to do, she'd nodded slowly, her face unreadable. That's really brave, she'd said, but her tone was flat, almost distracted. Then she'd gone upstairs to her room. A few days before the surgery, I came home from work to find Vanessa in the kitchen with her laptop open, scrolling through what looked like travel websites. She closed the screen quickly when she heard me come in. Planning a trip? I asked, trying to sound casual. She smiled, a tight, practiced smile. Just browsing, dreaming about getting away once all this stress is over. I nodded and went to my room, but the image stuck with me. That bright screen full of resort photos, her manicured nails clicking against the keys, the casual way she talked about getting away while my mother was preparing to have an organ removed. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself grief and stress were making me see shadows where there were none. I should have trusted my instincts. The surgery took place on a gray Thursday morning. I wasn't allowed in the operating room, so I sat in the hospital waiting area for 6 hours, watching the clock, drinking terrible coffee, praying to a God I wasn't sure I believed in anymore. Richard sat beside me for the first 2 hours, then excused himself to take work calls. He didn't come back for another hour. When he did, he smelled like cigarettes, though he'd supposedly quit months ago. Vanessa didn't come to the hospital at all. Hospitals make me anxious, she'd said that morning, barely looking up from her phone. When the surgeon finally came out to tell us the procedure had gone well, I broke down in the waiting room. Relief, exhaustion, fear, it all crashed over me at once. My mother woke up in recovery 3 hours later. Her face was pale, her voice weak, but she squeezed my hand and whispered, "We did it. We saved the house." I kissed her forehead and told her to rest. I told her everything would be okay now. I believed it. The first week after surgery was the hardest. My mother came home on Saturday afternoon, moving slowly, one hand always pressed gently against her left side. The hospital had sent her home with pain medication, instructions for wound care, and a list of warning signs to watch for. I'd transformed the downstairs guest bathroom into a recovery station. Clean towels stacked on the counter, her medications organized in a pill box, a chair placed in the shower so she wouldn't have to stand for long. I took 2 weeks off work using my saved vacation days. I helped her dress, brought her meals in bed, checked her incision site twice a day for any signs of infection. She slept most of the time, her body exhausted from the trauma of surgery. When she was awake, she'd ask about the payment. "Has it come through yet?" she'd whisper, her eyes searching my face. "Soon, Mom. These things take time. Just focus on healing." Richard had assured us the compensation would be processed within 10 days of the surgery. We had 35 days left before the foreclosure deadline. It would be tight, but we'd make it. Except the 10 days came and went, no payment. I called the hospital's donor program coordinator on day 12. She was apologetic but firm. "The funds were released to the account on file," she explained. "I'm showing the transfer completed on day 9, November 15th. My stomach dropped. "What account?" "The one Mr. Richard Holbrook provided during the initial paperwork. Is there a problem?" I thanked her and hung up, my hands shaking. Richard had handled the paperwork. He'd gone to the appointments where they discussed payment logistics. He'd said he was setting up a dedicated account so the money wouldn't get mixed up with our regular finances. "Keep it clean," he'd said. "Make sure it goes straight to the county." I found him in the garage, organizing tools he never used. "Where's the money?" I asked. He didn't turn around. "What?" "The $60,000. The hospital released it a week ago. Where is it?" He set down the wrench he was holding, slowly, carefully. When he finally looked at me, his expression was guarded. "It's in the account. It's safe." "Then why haven't you paid the county?" "I will. I just need to. There were some unexpected expenses. Medical bills from Grace's surgery that insurance didn't cover. I had to." "How much?" "What?" "How much did the medical bills cost, Richard?" He hesitated too long. "Around 8,000. So there's 52,000 left. That's still more than enough. Pay the county today." "Angela, you need to understand, it's not that simple." "Yes, it is." My voice was rising, and I didn't care. "My mother sold her kidney. She's upstairs recovering from major surgery. The only reason she did this was to save the house, so pay the damn bill." "I will," he said, his jaw tight. "But you don't get to talk to me like that in my own home." It's my mother's home, I shot back. My father's home, and if you don't make that payment by tomorrow, I'm calling a lawyer. I walked out before he could respond, my whole body trembling with rage and something darker, a creeping dread I couldn't name yet. The next day, I drove to the county tax office myself. I needed to see proof with my own eyes. The clerk pulled up our account and turned the monitor toward me. You still have an outstanding balance of $43,247, she said. No payments have been received in the last 60 days. Can you check again? Maybe something's processing. She clicked through several screens, then shook her head. Nothing pending, I'm sorry. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes trying to breathe, trying to think. Richard had lied to me. The money hadn't gone to medical bills. It hadn't gone to the county. So where had it gone? When I got home, Richard's truck was gone. My mother was asleep upstairs. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked down the hallway toward Vanessa's room, the guest room that had become her permanent residence. The door was slightly ajar. I knocked softly. No answer. I knocked again, then pushed the door open. The room was a mess, as usual. Clothes draped over the chair, makeup scattered across the dresser, an open suitcase on the floor. But it was the papers on the desk that caught my attention. Travel itineraries, printed receipts, booking confirmations. I moved closer, my heart pounding. A 2-week vacation to Turks and Caicos, first-class flights, an oceanfront villa rental, spa packages, dinner reservations at restaurants I couldn't even pronounce. Departure date, December 10th, just 3 weeks away. The total cost, printed neatly at the bottom of the itinerary, $18,000. I felt the room tilt. Beneath the travel papers were shopping receipts. Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom, Tiffany & Co. designer handbags, jewelry, shoes, thousands and thousands of dollars spent in the last 2 weeks. And tucked beneath everything else, a bank statement with Richard's name on it, and Vanessa's, listed as a joint account holder. The deposits were right there in black and white. November 15th, $60,000, and then, over the following days, a cascade of withdrawals and transfers. I sat down on the edge of her bed, the papers clutched in my hands, and I finally understood. Richard hadn't stolen the money alone. Vanessa had been part of it from the beginning. Maybe she'd even been the one to suggest it. The joint account, the timing of her move back home, the way she'd been so distracted, so unbothered by my mother's suffering. They'd planned this. While my mother was lying on an operating table, having a piece of herself removed, they were planning vacations and shopping sprees. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the fury to crystallize into something cold and sharp. I took photos of everything with my phone. Every receipt, every itinerary, every page of that bank statement. Then I carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. I walked upstairs to check on my mother. She was still sleeping, her breathing shallow but steady. I stood in the doorway watching her, this woman who had given so much, sacrificed so much, and had been betrayed by the man she'd trusted to protect her. Something inside me hardened in that moment. I'd spent my whole life being the peacekeeper, the understanding one, the person who gave grace and kept quiet to maintain harmony. But there are some betrayals that don't deserve grace, some thefts that can't be forgiven. And I was done being silent. I waited until evening, until I heard Richard's truck pull into the driveway. I'd spent the afternoon sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the photos on my phone, rehearsing what I would say. My hands had stopped shaking hours ago. Now there was only a cold, quiet clarity. He came through the front door carrying takeout bags, acting as if everything were normal. I brought Chinese, he called out. Grace, you awake? I got you the wonton soup you like. I stood up from the table. We need to talk. He set the bags down on the counter, not meeting my eyes. Angela, if this is about yesterday. Where's Vanessa? She went to meet a friend. Why? Good. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table between us, the bank statement photo on the screen. Because I want you to explain this to me before I show it to my mother. The color drained from his face. He stared at the phone, then at me, his mouth opening and closing like he was searching for words that wouldn't come. You and your daughter stole my mother's kidney money, I said, my voice steady and cold. $60,000, the money she nearly died to get, the money that was supposed to save this house. You gave it to Vanessa for a vacation and a shopping spree. It's not you don't understand. Then make me understand, Richard. I crossed my arms. Explain to me how this is anything other than theft. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd seen him make 100 times when he was stressed, but now it just looked like guilt. Vanessa was in a bad place. After her divorce, she had nothing. No savings, no stability she needed. She needed an $18,000 vacation to the Caribbean. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. She needed designer handbags and jewelry while my mother was recovering from surgery. You don't know what it's like to watch your child suffer, he said, his voice turning defensive. She was depressed, Angela, suicidal even. I had to do something to help her feel alive again. So you stole from my mother. I didn't steal, I borrowed it. I'm going to pay it back. With what money? I stepped closer to him. You couldn't pay the property taxes for 3 years. You can't even cover your own credit card bills. Where exactly is this magical money going to come from? He had no answer. He just stood there, looking older, suddenly smaller. We have 3 weeks, I said quietly. 3 weeks before they take the house. And you spent the only money we had on your daughter's tropical vacation. I'll fix it. How? The word came out like a slap. Tell me exactly how you're going to fix this, Richard, because I'm done with your empty promises. Before he could respond, I heard movement upstairs, a door opening, footsteps on the stairs, slow and careful. My mother appeared in the doorway, one hand pressed to her side, her face pale. What's going on? She asked. I heard shouting. My heart sank. Mom, you should be resting. Angela, what's happening? She looked between us, and I saw the fear creeping into her eyes, the same fear I'd seen when she opened that first letter from the county. I picked up my phone. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to be the one to break her heart again, but she deserved the truth. Mom, you need to sit down. I showed her everything: the bank statements, the travel itineraries, the receipts for designer clothes and jewelry. I watched her face as she scrolled through each photo, watched the disbelief turn to confusion, then to a kind of hollow devastation that made my chest ache. Richard tried to explain, stumbling over his words, making excuses, but she held up her hand to silence him. You took the money, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Grace, please let me explain. You took the money I got from selling my kidney, and you gave it to your daughter. Her voice was eerily calm, like she was in shock, for a vacation. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Richard? She looked up at him, and for the first time since I'd known her, I saw something in my mother's eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, not even hurt, just a cold, flat emptiness. Tell me what it was like. Vanessa needed help. She was falling apart, and I'm her father. I had to. I needed help, my mother said, her voice breaking. Your wife needed help. We were about to lose our home. I had surgery, Richard. They cut me open and took part of my body because you told me there was no other way. You told me you'd make sure the money went to the county. You promised me. I know, and I'm so sorry. Where is she? My mother stood up, moving too fast, wincing from the pain but pushing through it. Where's Vanessa? Grace, you need to rest. Where is she? As if summoned by the question, we heard the front door open. Vanessa's voice drifted in, light and cheerful, talking on her phone. Yeah, the resort looks amazing. 2 more weeks and I'm on a beach with a cocktail in my hand. She walked into the kitchen and stopped when she saw all of us standing there. She looked at our faces, at the phone in my mother's hand, and her smile faded. What's going on? She asked carefully. My mother held up the phone, showing her the photo of the travel itinerary. You're going to Turks and Caicos. Vanessa's eyes flicked to her father, then back to my mother. Yes, I needed a break, after everything I've been through. With my kidney money. The words hung in the air like a blade. Vanessa's face flushed. Dad said it was fine. He said it was his money to use. It wasn't his money, I cut in. It was compensation for an organ donation. It was supposed to save this house. The house will be fine, Vanessa said, her tone turning dismissive. Dad said you'd figure something out. We can't figure anything out because you spent it all? My voice cracked. You spent it on handbags and resort stays, while my mother was lying in a hospital bed recovering from surgery. Don't yell at me, Vanessa snapped, her facade cracking. I didn't force anyone to do anything. If Grace wanted to sell her kidney, that's her choice. What happened to the money afterward isn't my problem. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother stared at Vanessa like she was seeing her for the first time. Get out, she said quietly. What? Get out of my house. Grace, come on, Richard started. You too, Richard. My mother's voice was shaking now, but not with weakness, with fury. Both of you, get out. Richard looked like he'd been struck. Grace, you can't be serious. This is my home. This is my home, my mother said, her voice gaining strength. My name is on the deed. My husband bought this house. I've been paying the mortgage since before I even met you. And you stole from me, Richard. You looked me in the eye and promised me that money would save our home, and then you gave it to her. Mom, I said gently, putting my hand on her arm. Let me help you sit down. No, she pulled away from me, standing straighter despite the pain it clearly caused her. I'm done sitting down. I'm done being quiet. I'm done making excuses for people who don't deserve them. Vanessa laughed, actually laughed. It was a sharp, bitter sound. This is ridiculous. Dad, are you really going to let her throw us out? We're your family. And what am I? My mother's voice cracked. What have I been to you these past 8 months, Vanessa? A landlord? A maid? I welcomed you into this home. I cooked for you. I gave you space to heal. And you repaid me by stealing my kidney money for a vacation. I didn't steal anything, Vanessa shot back. My father gave me that money. He's allowed to make decisions about his own finances. It wasn't his money to give. I stepped between them, my own anger finally boiling over. Are you really this selfish, this delusional? My mother had an organ removed. She's still recovering. She did that to save this house, and you, my voice broke. You spent it on designer shoes. Vanessa's face twisted with contempt. You know what? I'm glad I did. I'm glad I got something good out of this miserable situation. Do you know what it's like to lose everything? To have your marriage fall apart, to have to move back in with your father like some kind of failure. Yes, actually, I said quietly. I do. I lost my father when I was 19. I watched my mother work herself to exhaustion to keep us afloat. I gave up my own savings to try to help with the property taxes, but I never once thought that gave me the right to steal from someone who was already suffering. Oh, spare me the martyr act. Enough, Richard's voice cut through the argument. He looked exhausted, defeated. Vanessa, go pack your things, we're leaving. Dad, you can't be serious. Pack your things. His voice was firm now, carrying an edge I'd never heard before. We'll get a hotel for tonight. Vanessa stared at him, her mouth open in disbelief. Then her face hardened. Fine. Enjoy your perfect little family, Grace. I hope you're happy. She stormed upstairs, her footsteps heavy on the stairs. Richard turned to my mother, his eyes pleading. Grace, please, give me a chance to fix this. I know I messed up. You didn't mess up, my mother said, and there were tears on her cheeks now. You betrayed me. You made me believe we were in this together, that you would protect our home the way I've been protecting it for years. And instead, you gave my sacrifice to your daughter like it meant nothing. It meant everything to me, he whispered. You mean everything to me? I couldn't say no to her. She's my daughter and she was hurting and I thought. You thought you could have it both ways, I finished for him. You thought you could make Vanessa happy and somehow still save the house. But you can't. And now we're going to lose everything anyway, except now my mother is down a kidney. He flinched like I'd hit him. Above us, we could hear Vanessa moving around, drawers slamming, her voice on the phone telling someone about the insane drama happening downstairs. My mother wiped her eyes and turned away from Richard. I need you gone by tonight, she said, both of you. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, Richard, and right now I don't care. They left 2 hours later. Vanessa came down first, dragging two expensive suitcases behind her, her face a mask of cold indifference. She didn't say goodbye. She walked right past us and out the front door like we were furniture. Richard took longer. He packed slowly, his movements heavy with regret. He tried twice more to apologize, to explain, but my mother wouldn't even look at him. Finally, he set his house key on the kitchen counter and walked out. We watched from the window as his truck pulled out of the driveway, tail lights disappearing down Maple Grove Avenue. Then my mother sank into a chair and wept. I held her while she cried, and I cried too, for the house we were still going to lose, for the kidney she'd sacrificed for nothing, for the marriage that had just ended, for the future we'd both imagined that was now ash. When she finally stopped crying, she looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. What are we going to do, Angela? I didn't have an answer, not yet. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Reeves, and she specialized in family law and fraud cases. I'd found her through an online search, reading reviews from other people who'd been stolen from by people they trusted. Her consultation fee was $200, money I didn't really have, but I paid it anyway. I sat in her office on a cold November afternoon and laid out everything: the failed property taxes, the kidney donation, the compensation, the bank statements showing Richard and Vanessa's theft, the travel bookings, all of it. Patricia listened, taking notes, her expression growing grimmer with each detail. "This is financial exploitation," she said when I finished. "Potentially criminal, depending on how the account was set up and what representations Richard made to your mother. At minimum, it's grounds for a civil lawsuit." "Can we get the money back?" I asked. "Maybe, probably not all of it and not quickly. These cases take time, and legal fees add up. Even if you win, collecting the judgment can be difficult if the money's already been spent." My heart sank, "So we're going to lose the house anyway." She was quiet for a moment, then leaned forward. "Not necessarily. There may be other options. Have you considered going public with the story?" I blinked. "What?" "Social media, local news. Sometimes public pressure can accomplish what legal action can't. People are sympathetic to stories like this. A woman who sacrificed her kidney to save her home, only to be betrayed by her husband and stepdaughter. It might generate donations, or pressure Richard and Vanessa to return the money, or at least prevent them from enjoying their vacation in peace." "I don't know," I said slowly. "My mother is a private person. She'd be humiliated." "She's already been humiliated," Patricia said gently. "The question is whether you want to fight back or let them get away with it." I thought about Vanessa's smug face as she walked out the door, about Richard's empty apologies, about my mother lying in a hospital bed, trusting that her sacrifice meant something. "I'll talk to her," I said. "My mother said no at first." "I can't," she whispered when I explained Patricia's suggestion. We were sitting in the living room, the afternoon light casting shadows across the faded carpet. "Angela, I can't air our family's problems for the world to see. It's too humiliating. More humiliating than losing Dad's house, because Richard and Vanessa stole from you." She closed her eyes. "That's different, that's private." "It doesn't have to be." I sat down beside her, taking her hand. "Mom, they're getting away with it. Richard took your kidney money and gave it to his daughter, and in 3 weeks we're going to be evicted anyway. Where's the dignity in that? Where's the privacy in being homeless?" "Don't," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry, but it's true. We have no options left. The legal route will take months, maybe years. We don't have that kind of time. But if people know what happened, if they understand what you did, what you sacrificed, and how you were betrayed, maybe someone will help. Maybe we can raise enough to save the house. And if we can't, if we just expose ourselves for nothing." I didn't have a good answer for that, so I just squeezed her hand and said, "Then at least everyone will know the truth about who they are." She was quiet for a long time, staring at the wall where a framed photo of her and my father hung, their wedding day, both of them young and hopeful and completely unaware of what life would bring. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, but you write it, I can't." I spent 2 days crafting the post. I wrote it, deleted it, wrote it again. I wanted to be honest without being vindictive, factual without being sensational. I wanted people to understand the depth of the betrayal without making my mother sound like a victim, because she wasn't. She was a survivor. I created a fundraising page first, setting the goal at $45,000, enough to cover the tax debt and a small cushion for Mom's medical follow-ups. Then I wrote the post to go with it. The title was simple: "My mother sold her kidney to save our home. My stepfather gave the money to his daughter for a vacation." I told the story chronologically: Dad's death, the property taxes, Richard's negligence, Mom's impossible decision, the surgery, the recovery, and then the discovery, the bank statements, the vacation bookings, the shopping sprees. I included photos, Mom's hospital bracelet, the property tax notice, screenshots of the travel itinerary with personal information redacted, the prescription bottles still sitting on her nightstand. I ended with this: "My mother gave a piece of herself, literally, to save the home my father left us. She trusted her husband to honor that sacrifice. Instead, he and his daughter stole her money and left us with nothing. We're sharing Thai. S story not for pity, but because we've exhausted every other option. If you can help, we'd be grateful. If you can't, please just share our story. Sometimes the truth is the only justice we can afford. I showed it to my mother before posting. She read it 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Then she nodded, post it. I hit publish at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. By midnight, we had $500 in donations and 200 shares. By morning, the post had gone viral. I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. Notifications flooded in messages, comments, friend requests from strangers. The fundraiser had climbed to $8,000. The story had been shared over 10,000 times. People were angry, righteously, furiously angry. This is disgusting. I hope karma catches up with that stepfather and his daughter. I lost my kidney 10 years ago. The recovery is brutal. What this woman went through, only to be betrayed like this, I have no words. Shared and donated. I hope you raise every penny and more. Someone find out where that daughter works. Let's make sure her employer knows what kind of person she is. Some comments were helpful. Lawyers offering free consultations, financial advisors suggesting ways to negotiate with the county, journalists asking if we'd be willing to be interviewed. Others were vicious, directed at Richard and Vanessa. People dug up Vanessa's social media accounts, which she'd foolishly left public. Photos of her designer handbags, her restaurant check-ins, her entitled captions about treating herself and living her best life. They screenshot everything and shared it alongside our story. By noon, a local news station had reached out. By evening, 3 more had followed. My mother was overwhelmed. "This is too much," she said, scrolling through the comments on my laptop. "These people are calling for Richard's head. Some of them are threatening Vanessa. They're just angry on your behalf, Mom." "It feels wrong. I didn't want." She pressed her hand to her mouth. "I didn't want it to be like this." But it was like this. The internet had taken our story and run with it, and there was no putting the genie back in the bottle. The fundraiser hit $20,000 by the second day. Then 30,000. Messages poured in from across the country, people who'd been betrayed by family members, people who'd lost homes, people who simply couldn't stomach the injustice. A retired nurse in Oregon sent $500 with a note. "I worked 40 years in healthcare. What your mother did was heroic. This is the least I can do." A man in Texas who donated his own kidney sent $200. "Tell your mother she's stronger than she knows. Sending love and prayers." By day 4, we'd reached $45,000, our full goal, but the donations didn't stop. They kept coming, climbing to 50,000, then 55. And then Richard called. I saw his name on my phone screen and felt my stomach clench. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Angela," his voice was tight, strained. "You need to take that post down now." "No." "Do you have any idea what you've done? Vanessa can't leave her apartment. People are harassing her at work. Someone threw eggs at her car. She's getting death threats, Angela, death threats." "Then maybe she should give back the money she stole." "She didn't steal." "Yes, she did. You both did. And now the whole world knows it." "This is cruel. You're destroying her life." "She destroyed my mother's life?" My voice rose, all the anger I'd been holding back for weeks finally breaking free. "She stole kidney money, Richard. Money my mother nearly died to get. And she spent it on a vacation while we were about to lose our home. So forgive me if I don't care that she's facing consequences for the first time in her entitled life." There was silence on the other end, then quietly, "What do you want?" "I want you to give back the money. Every penny. Wire it to the fundraiser account publicly so everyone can see you doing the right thing. Then maybe I'll consider asking people to back off. I don't have it anymore. Most of it's been spent." "Then sell something, cancel the vacation, return the handbags, figure it out, Richard. You got yourself into this mess. You can get yourself out." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but for the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. The news stations came on day 5. Channel 7 was first. A young reporter named Jessica Chen, who had kind eyes and asked gentle questions. She sat in our living room with a cameraman, and my mother told the story in her own words. She spoke slowly, carefully, her hand occasionally drifting to her side where the scar was still healing. I just wanted to save our home, she said on camera, her voice steady but soft. My husband, my first husband, he bought this house for us. It's where I raised my Otter, it's the only piece of him I have left. When I found out we were going to lose it, I felt like I was losing him all over again. Jessica leaned forward. And the kidney donation, that wasn't an easy decision. No, but I'm a nurse. I understood the risks. I knew the recovery would be difficult, but I also knew it was the only way. Mom's eyes filled with tears. What I didn't know was that the money would be gone before I even left the hospital. Your husband, Richard, he controlled the funds. I trusted him too. He said he'd set up an account specifically for the tax payment. He promised me. Her voice cracked, and I believed him. The interview aired that night during the 6 o'clock news. By 7, our fundraiser had climbed past $60,000. By 9, it was at 70. And then the story was picked up nationally. Suddenly, we were everywhere. Morning talk shows discussed our case. Personal finance podcasts used our story as a cautionary tale about joint accounts and trust. Social media was flooded with hot takes, some supportive, some critical, some debating whether my mother should have sold her kidney in the first place. This is what's wrong with American healthcare. A woman had to sell an organ to keep her home. That's the real crime here. Everyone's mad at the stepdaughter, but can we talk about how medical debt and property taxes can destroy a family? This is systemic. I don't care about the politics. A woman sacrificed her body and got robbed by her own family. That's evil, plain and simple. The debate raged, but the donations kept coming. By the end of the first week, we'd raised $90,000, double our original goal. Patricia, our lawyer, called with updates. The public pressure is working. Richard contacted me yesterday. He's willing to negotiate a settlement. What kind of settlement? I asked. He's offering to return $30,000, what's left of the original 60 after Vanessa's expenses and some of his own debts. It's not everything, but it's something. It's not enough. Angela, I agree, but getting the rest might mean a protracted legal battle, and with the fundraiser already exceeding your needs. She was right. We had more than enough now to pay the county and cover Mom's ongoing medical expenses. Fighting Richard for the remaining 30,000 would cost money we didn't need to spend, time we didn't have, and emotional energy that was already depleted. Let me talk to my mother, I said. Mom was in the kitchen when I found her, washing dishes, something she'd started doing again now that she was feeling stronger. The incision still pulled when she moved certain ways, but her color was better. She was healing. I told her about Richard's offer. She was quiet for a long moment, her hands still in the soapy water. 30,000, she said finally, less than half of what he took. I know, but Patricia says getting the rest could take months in court, and we already have enough to pay the taxes and then some. People have been so generous. Because they're angry at Richard, they want justice. Do you? I asked. Want justice, I mean, or do you want to be done with him? She pulled her hands from the water and dried them slowly on a towel. I want our home to be safe. I want to know that when I wake up tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, I'll still be living in the house your father and I built our life in. That's all I've wanted from the beginning. Then we take the 30,000, we pay the county, we put the rest in savings, and we move on with our lives. She nodded and I saw something in her expression shift, a weight lifting maybe, or just acceptance. Okay, tell Patricia to take the settlement. The payment to the county went through on December 3rd, 2 weeks before the final foreclosure deadline. I drove to the tax office in person with a cashier's check for $43,247. The clerk who'd helped me before smiled when she saw me. I saw you on the news, she said. I'm so glad this worked out. Me too, I said, and I meant it. She processed the payment, and when she handed me the receipt marked paid in full, I felt tears spring to my eyes. I took a photo of it right there at the counter and texted it to my mother. Her response came seconds later, a single heart emoji and the words, "Tell Dad we kept his house." Richard and Vanessa disappeared from our lives after that. The settlement money came through as promised, $30,000 wired directly to my mother's account. Richard sent one email after the transfer, brief and formal. I hope this helps. I'm sorry for everything. My mother deleted it without responding. Vanessa's social media accounts went private. The vacation to Turks and Caicos was quietly canceled. Whether out of shame or financial necessity, I never knew. Someone spotted her at a local grocery store weeks later and posted about it only. Noting that she looked miserable and defeated. The post got thousands of likes. I didn't share it, I didn't need to. The story had moved on, the internet's attention shifting to the next outrage, the next injustice. And honestly, I was grateful for the quiet. We spent Christmas in the house on Maple Grove Avenue, just the two of us. Mom was strong enough by then to help with cooking. We made Dad's favorite meal, pot roast with roasted vegetables, homemade rolls, apple pie for dessert. We set the table with the good china, lit candles, put on the old jazz records Dad used to love. We didn't talk about Richard. We didn't talk about Vanessa. We didn't even talk much about the kidney or the money or how close we'd come to losing everything. Instead, we talked about the future. I'm thinking of going back to school, I said over dessert, finishing my master's degree. There's a program online, I could do it while still working. Mom smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her in months. Your father would be so proud. What about you? What do you want to do? She looked around the room, at the walls she'd painted, the floors she'd walked for decades, the windows that looked out on the garden she'd planted. I want to stay here, she said simply. I want to wake up in this house every day and remember that we fought for it, that we didn't give up. We didn't, I agreed. She reached across the table and took my hand. Thank you, Angela, for fighting for me when I didn't have the strength to fight for myself. That's what family does, Mom, real family. Spring came early that year. By March, the rose bushes along the front walkway were already budding, tiny green shoots pushing through the dark soil. Mom spent her weekends in the garden, planting new flowers, daffodils and tulips in bright yellows and reds. Her scar had healed well, just a thin line on her side that she said barely hurt anymore. Battle scar, she called it once with a wry smile, proof that I'm stronger than I thought. The house felt different now. Lighter somehow. We'd repainted the guest room, Vanessa's old room, a soft sage green. Mom turned it into a reading nook with a comfortable chair, bookshelves, and a small desk by the window. No more guests, she'd said firmly while we rolled paint onto the walls. Just us. The fundraiser money that remained after paying the county, nearly $47,000, sat in a savings account. We used some of it for Mom's follow-up medical appointments, which insurance didn't fully cover. The rest we saved, a cushion against future emergencies. Mom insisted on donating $5,000 to a local charity that helped families facing foreclosure. Someone helped us when we needed it most, she said. Now we help someone else. I'd restarted my master's program in education. Classes were challenging, but fulfilling, everything I'd hoped they would be when I'd first enrolled years ago. I studied at the kitchen table in the evenings while Mom read beside me, both of us comfortable in the quiet companionship we'd built. We were healing, both of us, in different ways at different paces, but together. It was April when I got the message. I was scrolling through social media during a study break when I saw it, a private message from someone I didn't know. The profile picture showed a young woman with dark hair and a kind smile. Her name was Marissa. Hi, Angela, the message read. I hope this doesn't seem strange, but I wanted to reach out. I was the recipient of your mother's kidney. My heart stopped. I read the message 3 more times, then called out for my mother. She came into the living room, dish towel still in her hands, concern on her face. What's wrong? Mom, I turned the phone toward her. It's from the woman who got your kidney. Her face went pale. She sat down heavily on the couch beside me. What does she say? I clicked on the message thread and read aloud. Hi, Angela. I hope this doesn't seem strange, but I wanted to reach out. I was the recipient of your mother's kidney. The donation program maintains confidentiality, but after I saw your story on the news, I did some research and realized it had to be her. I've been on dialysis for 3 years, since I was 24. Kidney disease runs in my family. I'd been on the transplant list for so long, I'd almost given up hope. Then I got the call that there was a match. Your mother saved my life. I know she went through something terrible, and I'm so sorry that her sacrifice was taken advantage of. But I wanted you both to know that because of what she did, I got to see my daughter's 3rd birthday. I got to go back to work. I got to have a future. I don't know if you'll respond to this, and I understand if you don't, but I needed to tell you, your mother's kidney is safe with me. It's healthy and working beautifully. and I think about her every single day. Thank you doesn't seem like enough, but thank you with all my heart, Mar. Lisa. By the time I finished reading, both Mom and I were crying. Mom pressed her hand to her mouth, her shoulders shaking. She has a daughter, she whispered, a little girl. Mom. Angela, it wasn't for nothing. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face, but her eyes were bright. Everything we went through, it wasn't for nothing. Someone's alive because of what I did. A mother is alive for her child. I wrapped my arms around her and held her while she cried, not sad tears this time, but something else. Relief, maybe, or redemption. Or just the knowledge that in the middle of all the betrayal and pain, something beautiful had come from her sacrifice. We met Marissa 3 weeks later at a coffee shop downtown. She was petite, with warm brown eyes and her daughter Maya on her hip, a curly-haired toddler with chocolate on her face, and a stuffed elephant clutched in one hand. Marissa's husband James stood beside her, his hand protectively on her back. When Marissa saw my mother, she started crying immediately. I'm sorry, she said, laughing through her tears. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. It's okay, Mom said, her own eyes wet. I'm crying too. They hugged carefully at first, then tighter. I watched them, these two women connected by a kidney and a twist of fate, and I felt something shift in my chest. All the anger I'd been carrying, all the bitterness about Richard and Vanessa, it didn't disappear, but it mattered less somehow. We sat together for 2 hours. Marissa told us about her illness, the years of dialysis, the fear that she'd never see Maya grow up. James talked about the call from the hospital, the emergency surgery, the miracle of waking up to his wife with color in her cheeks for the first time in years. I'm a kindergarten teacher, Marissa said, bouncing Maya on her knee. I had to quit when I got too sick to work, but I'm back in the classroom now full time. My kids made cards for you when I told them about the donation. She pulled a manila envelope from her bag and handed it to my mother. They wanted to say thank you too. Mom opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were dozens of hand-drawn cards, crayon drawings of hearts and flowers, misspelled messages of gratitude, stick figures holding hands. To the nice lady who saved Miss Marissa, thank you for helping our teacher. You are a hero. Mom couldn't speak. She just held the cards, looking at each one, tears dripping onto the construction paper. Maya reached out and patted my mother's hand with her small, sticky fingers. You nice, she said solemnly. We all laughed, the tension breaking into something warm and light. When we drove home that evening, the sun was setting over Maple Grove Avenue, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Mom was quiet in the passenger seat, the envelope of cards on her lap. I'm glad we went, she said finally. Me too. I needed to see that it mattered, that even though Richard and Vanessa took the money, they couldn't take away what I actually gave. She looked out the window at the familiar streets, the houses we'd passed 1,000 times. I gave life, Angela. That's worth more than any amount of money. It is, I agreed. We pulled into the driveway and I saw the house, our house, saved and secure, waiting for us. The porch light was on, the way we always left it. The rose bushes were in full bloom now, deep crimson against the white siding. You know what? Mom said as we got out of the car. I think I'm going to plant a garden in the backyard, a big one. Vegetables, maybe. Tomatoes and peppers and zucchini, something living and growing. That sounds perfect, Mom. She smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. It does, doesn't it? I wish I could tell you that Richard ever truly apologized, that Vanessa had some moment of clarity and returned the rest of the money. But that's not what happened. Some people never take accountability for their actions. Some betrayals never get the closure you want. But here's what I learned. Justice doesn't always look the way you expect it to. Sometimes it's not about punishment or revenge. Sometimes it's simply about survival, about rebuilding, about choosing every single day to keep going, to keep loving, to keep believing that goodness exists even when people disappoint you. My mother sold her kidney to save our house. She was betrayed by people she trusted. And yes, we lost money. We lost a marriage. We lost our sense of safety for a while. But we didn't lose the house. We didn't lose each other. And somewhere across town, a little girl named Maya is growing up with her mother, alive and healthy, because of what my mom did. That's the story I choose to remember. Not the theft, not the cruelty, but the sacrifice, the community that rallied around us, and the life that was saved. My mother gave a piece of herself, and even though it was taken advantage of, twisted into something ugly by selfish people. The gift itself remains. In Ed Pure, the kidney found its purpose, a life was saved. And in the end, maybe that's the only justice that really matters. We still live on Maple Grove Avenue. The rose bushes bloom every spring. Mom's garden in the backyard produces more vegetables than we can eat, so we share them with neighbors. I finished my master's degree last year and now teach fifth grade at the local elementary school. Sometimes I see Marissa at the grocery store, usually with Maya chattering beside her. We always stop to talk. Maya's 5 now, starting kindergarten this fall. She's healthy and bright and full of energy, a living reminder that even our worst moments can create something beautiful. Mom keeps Marissa's cards in a box on her dresser. On hard days, she takes them out and reads them. To the nice lady who saved Miss Marissa, a reminder that she's more than what was done to her, she's what she chose to give. So I ask you this, if you were in our position, what would you have done? Would you have fought back the way we did? Would you have forgiven? Would you have chosen silence or exposure? There's no right answer. Every family, every betrayal, every loss is different. But I hope if you're facing something difficult, if someone has taken something precious from you, you remember this. They can steal your money. They can break your trust. They can disappoint you in ways you never imagined. But they can't steal your purpose. They can't take away what you gave from the heart. And sometimes that has to be enough. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up when everyone else walks away.